It's just my hands I'm worried about. I got to figure out if I can get gloves.
I have Mike deputized, but he likes that. Mikey likes that.
Yeah, he does.
What's better than picking the winner? How about owning the winner? With Saratoga's original racing partnership, Parting Glass Racing. Our partnerships are surprisingly affordable, offering minimum risk, maximum purchasing power, and the unparalleled expertise of a superior management team. A team of proven winners. Join Saratoga's original racing partnership. Call 877-RACE-WIN. That's 877-722-3946. Or visit partingglassracing.com.
Whitehall Stable is having a breakout year. Hi, I'm Jim Pippo. I'm really excited to share this dream. I've put together an expert team that personally picks quality thoroughbreds.
We have an exciting roster of 2-year-olds this year. It's a great opportunity.
Shares are now available. Low risk to you at fair prices. I will manage your investment because it's also mine. Partner with a local name in thoroughbred racing. Join the excitement. Go to whitehallstable.com or call today.
This is the OTB Television Network.
Coming to the top of the lane in the Ladies' Secret, and Brecat under pressure now. Another long shot made for Magic right there. And here's Zenyatta now. She's winding away between horses and now going to come to the outside. And Mike Smith takes dead aim on the leaders and asks Zenyatta to go. And just look at her go. Zenyatta strikes the front, just playing with him here. He is going back and forth. And it's Zenyatta, lethal heat running on at the rail. But Zenyatta with condescending ease wins it only a length, but so easily.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Down the Stretch. Along with my colleague Mike VIETCH, the racing columnist with the Saratogian, I'm Mark CUSANO, welcoming you to this morning's October 17th edition of the program as we stand 20 and 21 days away from Breeders' Cup 26. And this morning, we are going to look back at 19 important stakes races, most of them having Breeders' Cup implications. We will begin with Ladies' Secret, in the Ladies' Secret with Zenyatta's history-making 13th in a row. We'll go right up until Thursday's Jessamine at Keeneland. We will also touch upon Europe's Best being retired, and we'll read a couple of emails and letters from you folks. So all of that, and who knows, much, much more if you stay with us for this October 17th edition of the program, which is being sponsored by Parting Glass Racing and Whitehall Stable. Partner, good morning.
Well, good morning. How are you doing?
Oh, just super.
Well,
just super.
you know, hey, listen, I should be in Toronto this weekend.
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
would be a
going on.
perfect weekend.
Be a beautiful day up
Yep.
there,
Yep.
probably a high of 36 or 38, but the sun is supposed to be out as far as I know. And all kidding aside, the Taylor is a very, very good filly race today. It really is.
Yeah, it is an
Very,
interesting
very good
race.
Yeah.
We're speaking of the
Of
E.P.
Taylor at Woodbine. Yeah, think they've got 3 win-in your-ins from this weekend
Yes,
up there.
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And, you know, I got a few notes this morning, you know, in past performances with 19 races to look back at. There's actually a filly, I'll never be able to find it. Yes, a filly in the E.P. Taylor who I've been waiting for since July 9th.
Okay.
Treat Gently.
Oh, okay, good, yeah.
Won
Yeah.
an allowance
Yeah.
race at Belmont
Yep.
on July 9th.
Yep.
And I love the way she won it, but she hasn't raced since July 9th.
Hasn't been out since, yeah.
I kept waiting for her at
Yeah.
Saratoga. It is Bobby Frankel. That barn is very dangerous off of freshening. but she's stretching out to 1.25 miles this
Mile and a
afternoon.
quarter for that, and there's an Irish Group 1 winner there who probably will be favored there, Rainbow View, I think.
Yeah, it was
and
champion
interestingly,
2-year-old.
on pedigree thing, Augustin stable up there, Rainbow View and Just As Well are out of the same mare.
Okay.
What a day she'll have if she does well. The International, which is a race I love, I don't think came up as heavy as it has in
No.
some races, but it's kind of a good rematch of the battle that took place in the Northern Dancer up there. But the E.P. Taylor this year, I think, is a very classy affair. So I'll be watching yours very closely, and look here, somebody who's been against the males, I kind of like her a little bit in there too. So,
right.
and I do hope the conditions are good up there. So
No turf racing today
So-
at Belmont, unfortunately. The
Ugh,
Athenia,
ugh.
which was originally scheduled for today, will be run next Wednesday. The Knickerbocker, which was scheduled for tomorrow, will be run next Thursday. And last night at the Meadowlands, Etched held off Kiss the Kid in his final
I thought
career
that was
start.
a
That
very,
is Kiss
very
the
nice
Kid,
performance,
to win the
Mark. I mean,
Meadowlands
from
Cup.
outside all the way, and two guys took a run on him at the top of the stretch, and he had something left. That was a pretty nice return.
Karen McLaughlin and Alan Garcia. All right. We're going to be talking about lots of races which will have Breeders' Cup implications this morning. We've got information on a couple of Breeders' Cup seminars for you, beginning with the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame Breeders' Cup seminar on Halloween, Saturday, October 31st, beginning at 4. It is free. It is open to the public. I will be joined on the panel by Gene Wood, who you see here at Capital OTB, and Tim Wilkin from the Times-Union. Mike Kane will moderate. And, you know, folks, we're going to be looking at video. We're going to be talking about 14 races. In my opinion, the best thing about this is you can ask specific questions about specific horses or specific races. And, you know, I think that's the great thing about audience and panel interaction. So, again, we'll be giving you updates on this over the next couple of weeks. But mark this down. Halloween Saturday, 4 p.m. at the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame. Then the following Wednesday evening at the Albany Teletheater, Capital will have its Breeders' Cup seminar hosted by Gene Wood with Kyle Brownell and Seth Merrow. That will be Wednesday, November 4th at 6:30. So there's a couple of Breeders' Cup seminars for you. One horse who will not be participating in this year's Breeders' Cup is See the Stars, because Europe's finest and the first horse ever to capture the 2,000 guineas, the Epsom Derby in the Arc, has been retired. According to his trainer John Ox, See the Stars retired, and I'm quoting, fit and healthy, end quote. After losing his debut in July of 2008, he won his next 8 starts. And See the Stars won Group 1 races every month from May through October of this year. And partner, that is obviously quite an accomplishment.
Well, it's quite an accomplishment. I'm sorry that he's gone. I mean, we're really not going to see him flower at 4 as we hoped that he would do. I think it's kind of an odd retirement, but that's just my opinion. You know, it's kind of in the mold of what we used to do here before our economy fell apart.
Yeah,
But,
well.
you know, I mean, we all know what it's about, but, you know, I'm trying not to be sarcastic, one of the greatest horses of the last 100 years, so they say. So,
Well, he
you
did.
know, I mean,
he did make
you
9
know,
career
he
starts.
sure did a wonderful thing.
Yes,
I'm
he
not
did.
saying, and he did make 9 career
Yeah.
starts. Yeah.
His non-participation in the Breeders' Cup Classic, a lot of folks feel that might open the door for Zenyatta to go to the Classic rather than the distaff.
And this thing, please,
Yeah, I know.
stop.
Greg Avioli, the president of the Breeders' Cup, had stated that See the Stars would have brought an additional 10,000 people to Santa Anita and an additional $10 million in handle to the Breeders' Cup. I will not comment on that. Let's get started with 19 major stakes from the extended weekend past, and we will begin with the Lady's Secret, the one and only story of the Lady's Secret, Zenyatta's bid to remain unbeaten while looking to equal Personal Ensign's record of 13 straight. Zenyatta, number 5, is the 2-5 favorite. Now, there didn't appear to be much pace early on, as Breecat would go 25 and 49 and 2. But you know what? In spite of those fractions, all the speed would stop. Mike Smith, at the top of your screen, Zenyatta is next to last, but a bit closer to the pace than expected. She would launch a very strong run around the far turn, inhale her competition with consummate ease, then continue on for a very handy length and a quarter score over number 6 Lethal Heat and number 1 Cocoa Beach. Now unbeaten in 13 career starts, what an amazing mare this is.
Well, I agree, Mark, and for me, this victory here was one of her sharpest. I'm not minding the numbers that various analysts have posted about it in relation to the others this last weekend, or even her own numbers, you know. I also was thinking, as I watched this a couple of times, I reflected upon the skill of John Shirreffs and taking her to this point in her management. Remember, she started her career late, and there may be a hidden meaning in that, having not raced as a 2-year-old. She is, of course, a slam dunk to repeat as the champion of her own division, and the only question now is which Breeders' Cup race she elects to go in, probably pre-enter both, I would think, the Ladies' Classic and the Classic. If it's the Classic, no filly has won the Classic, and you know, without a search, I remember that Jolifa finished 3rd to AP Indy in 1992, so I'm going to say that that's probably the best effort by a filly in the Classic on Breeders' Cup Day. I have some strong opinions here, and something I wrote about her and comparing her to Personal Ensign last week, and got a lot of comment now. I'm really thankful for people for taking the time to write the Saratogian about it, and a lot of them took issue with me, but you know, first, if she goes to the Classic and she wins, she's not Horse of the Year. I know that gets people upset, and I've heard various opinions on that. It's just that the Rachel accomplishment is so enormous that it can happen. This then leads to the you know, the question, well, where do they go and what did they do? Well, first of all, Zenyatta has done everything that's been asked of her, and it doesn't matter to me that she's winning out there on Pro Ride. That just doesn't matter to me. She's obviously a super gifted filly, now a mare, and she's been handled so well by Shirreffs. The other thing is, I don't know what there is to gain in the Classic. I'd like to see her keep that streak going. She's, you know, too short of the great Colin, and you know, I'm not going to be surprised if the Ladies' Classic is the pick, to be honest. I think it's the more logical thing. But here, this day, gosh, she looks sharp. And she reminds me every time she runs of how much speed she really has. It's just the way John has chosen to utilize it with her. The dream match that will never take place, at least I hope it never takes place, I think Zenyatta would be a lot closer than one ever thinks, because I can see John training her that way. This is a wonderful, wonderful, historic mare. I'm so happy for her. She deserves to be there with Personal Ensign, Mark, in my opinion.
A lot of people are saying number 13 victory here, not overly visually impressive. The speed figure guys are pointing out that the Lady's Secret of 142 and 4, slow race, couldn't even compare to the Goodwood. In fact, Zenyatta's last 2 races have been some of the slowest of her career. She only beat Lethal Heat by a length and a quarter. I'll have more on that as far as what Mike Smith had to say about that in just a couple of minutes. Nice second by Lethal Heat, coming just 7 days after running second to males in the Cal Cup Classic. But 7 days might not be anything, because her trainer, Barry Abrams, is looking at running Lethal Heat in the distaff on Friday, and then the turf sprint on Saturday. That's pretty interesting. Cocoa Beach not nearly as good as she was last year. She's been playing catch-up all year, and unsuccessfully so. I thought she just ran on for 3rd on sheer guts and class. But the question now, and the major question, of course, is, does Zenyatta point to the distaff or the Classic? Kind of an unusual response from Jerry Moss, her owner, saying that Zenyatta will decide. I don't know. Maybe that's the way they say things in Southern California. I don't, you know, I guess the one thing I disagree with my partner is I don't like the fact that they've chosen the easy way out with her. She's great. She's fabulous. But she really doesn't get the credit she deserves, because they have taken the white bread, vanilla ice cream, easy way out, And the one thing she would get out of the Classic is she would face males for the first time.
Well, that would finally happen.
You know?
I'm putting myself in their position. Quite logically, she remains unbeaten in the Ladies Classic. She carries on. She surpasses personal legend. She remains unbeaten. She maybe retires unbeaten unless they do that carry on to next year. The other thing is the Classic itself it makes it a big. It makes the day special. They don't have Rachel. They don't have See the Stars. She finally retires with the Beat the Colts thing. But I really don't know what the Beat the Colt things gets for her other than that remark. It's not changing how the voting is going to go at the end of the year.
No.
There's not that much on the table for her as far as that goes in the Classic, other than the history of, I got over this mountaintop too.
No filly's ever won the Classic. That's huge.
Well, that's what I
history.
mean. No, that's
Right,
what I mean.
that-
The
you know,
historical
that
thing.
in
But
itself
it
is
doesn't.
tremendous.
There's no immediate gain. You don't win another title by doing
No,
that.
you don't.
But it's wonderful to be in the
Probably
history.
don't.
But
We don't think.
Mark, this.
But it's the
am
voters who
astounded.
decide.
I am astounded that this is even a discussion point. Why is it a discussion point? Look, your girl. No one has ever done in the history of the game. The Kentucky Oaks, the Preakness, the Mother Goose, the Haskell, no one's ever done this.
I understand.
Your guy secretariat, he has 10 fellow members in the Triple Crown Cup. She has no members.
Yeah.
How can anybody even entertain this thought? Please, this should not be interpreted as I don't like Zenyatta. I love Zenyatta. If the Fable match happened, I'm one of the few people who think she'd be a lot closer and have a better chance than people think she would have. She's never really been stung out to the limit to do this. But for heaven's sakes, this Horse of the Year thing, people who just know better are advancing something that is just utterly illogical. It'll be the greatest injustice in this game if she wins the Classic and becomes Horse of the Year. It's just beyond comprehension with what Rachel has done this year.
Well, we
I
think
can't go there.
We think
You know.
it's beyond comprehension, but let's remember the only thing that decides Horse of the Year are the votes, and we never know how voters are going to vote.
They usually come out pretty well.
So, a
just,
couple of things that Mike Smith, who has ridden Zenyatta in her last 10 starts, had to say. After the Ladies' Secret, she has an amazing turn of foot, one that I've never seen before. She only ran about 4 jumps when we turned for home, and then she shut it down. I just have so much confidence in her, and today she had 10 gears and she only had to use 4 of them, end quote. About winning, I asked Mike yesterday, you only won by a length and a quarter and you didn't run particularly fast. And he said, well, you know what? She does what she needs to do. Mm-hmm. She could have won by more and run faster if she had to, but she doesn't really blow by her rivals and bury them only in the apple blossom. And that's why I still think she might be better on dirt. Now, I asked Mike, have the Sheriffs and the Mosses asked you your opinion on which Breeders' Cup race Zenyatta should run in? He said, not yet, but when they ask me, I'm going to tell them, obviously either one is fine with him, but Mike feels she can compete and win the Classic. He does feel she has a reasonable chance to go to the Classic. I asked Mike, if she goes to the Classic, it'll be the first time versus the boys. Will there be any intimidation factor? Absolutely not. She's a monster, and she works with the boys all the time. You know what? Here's something a lot of people don't know about Zenyatta. She's 13 for 13. She's only run a mile and an eighth 3 times out of those 13.
I know it. I did
So,
it. Yeah.
so I said to Mike,
you know it too. Yeah.
What about going a mile and a quarter?
That's right.
He said, I don't think it'll be a problem. I think she might be better at that distance. Last year, when Mike Smith was on the show, he told you folks, Zenyatta was as good as any horse he's ever ridden. Folks, that's a major statement.
Well,
he's ridden, the first 2 off the top of my head, of course, are Holy Bull and Skip Away. Think about that a second. I asked him yesterday, Mike, you've had another year with her. Do you still feel that way? He said, absolutely, more so now than ever before. But for Jerry Moss to say Zenyatta will decide which race she runs in is just absolutely bizarre
He's
to me.
telling you.
I have no idea
He's telling you
what
that
means.
he's like the rest of us. He's totally conflicted about the whole situation. I mean, I
Okay.
would just take it as that kind of a remark.
Okie
I
dokie.
mean,
All right, if Zenyatta does go in the distaff, she's going to be facing some fillies coming out of the Spinster. And you know, for me, and maybe this is just for me, this year's Spinster was more about who wasn't there than who ran. Icon Project, who was absolutely razor sharp and at the top of her game. She missed the Spinster. Apparently, she had a bleeding incident down in Florida. That kept her out of the Spinster and probably the distaff as well. In her absence, the favorite in the Spinster, number 8, Swift Temper, the upset winner, the Grade 1 Ruffian in last, but 0 for 1 on synthetic. Well, after the Spinster, she's 0 for 2 because she's going to run 10th of 11. In the end, it would be the erratic Proviso, number 4, out finishing number 11, Mushka. But Proviso's swerving in deep stretch into the path of Mushka would result in a reversal of the original order, and Mushka is now a Grade 1 stakes winner on synthetic.
it's really interesting. You mentioned the synthetic. She's a $1.6 million Empire maker. I think it's probably first crop because she's 4. She's a graded stakes winner on the Aqueduct Dirt, a graded stakes winner on the Saratoga Turf coming off the Glens Falls, and now a graded and i.e. Grade 1 winner on the Keeneland Poly Track, where she had won a very impressive allowance race that was transferred to the main track here several months ago. So that's quite an accomplishment to say for her. What that does for Empire Maker as a prototypical stallion, I really don't have any idea because I don't know how much synthetic is going to be left, say, in another generation. But this is a pretty easy call to make, in my opinion. Proviso making her first American start, first Lasits, et cetera, but I think it was a just call, and very, very nice management of Mushka throughout her career.
2 for 2 at Keeneland for Mushka. Proviso, who you see galloping out, is a European import from Juddmonte, whose 15 prior starts were all on turf.
On turf, yep.
All right, we are up to our first break on this October 17th edition of the show. Thank you so much for having joined us. When Michael and I return, it is part 2 of our stakes recap as we go to this break. Last Saturday in New York, the Jamaica Grade 1 for straight 3-year-olds on the proper surface. The 85-cent to the dollar favorite, number 2, Courageous Cat, a winner of his last 3, including the Hall of Fame here at Saratoga. The 2.5 to 1 second choice, number 6, Take the Points, owned locally by Don and Barbara Lucarelli of Schenectady and Jack Wolf of Saratoga, the winner of the Grade 1 Secretariat in last. So we'll take a look at the Jamaica going to the break. And Michael and I will be back with much, much more right after these messages.
The trailer. Down the backstretch run after a 48-3 into the wind half mile here, and Chapin Beach leads the way. Take the Points is moving at the half-mile pole. He's right alongside Courageous Cat. Justin behind them. Straight Story runs in 4th. Mr. Sandman Grassy and Boots ahead. Chapin Beach the leader with 3 furlongs to go. Take the Points second and pressing for the lead. Straight Story racing up 3 wide, and Courageous Cat odds on and favored in behind the lead and 4th as the field turns for home. Take the Points on top. Straight Story is second. Courageous Cat is third. He's dropped a length and a half behind. 1 furlong to go. Take the Points digs down. Straight Story attacks with a less than an eighth of a mile to run. Courageous Cat is third. Grassy is 4th. Take the Point, Straight Story. Take the Point, Straight Story. It's going to be very close between those two at the wire. Take the Points wins the Jamaica narrowly over Straight Story. Courageous Cat at 4 to 5. Checked in third. Grassy was 4th.
This is the OTB Television Network.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. Mike Veach to my left, I'm Mark CUSANO. And the Jamaica goes to take the points. Congratulations to Don Lucarelli and Jack Wolf. And Todd Pletcher breaks his 0 for 50 streak in grade ones in New York under Edgar Prado, gamely by a head over straight story. The favorite, Courageous Cat, third. They will next go to the Hollywood Derby, and then they will look to go to Santa Anita on the pro ride for the Stroud Series.
All right.
They're going to try to make him a grade one stakes winner
Yeah.
on both surfaces. All right. We begin the next segment with the Goodwood. And other than my partner, who was looking forward to a horse who had won exactly one race in his last 11 starts, a lot of folks were interested in the return of number 10, the Kentucky Derby hero, Mine That Bird, away for 10 weeks and having had his schedule disrupted by a throat procedure. Mine That Bird was the 3-1 second choice behind number 4, Colonel John, most recently a troubled fifth in the Pacific Classic. Now, I think it's pretty fair to say that the group of older horses in here were basically second-level horses. And that was just fine with the eventual winner, number 8, Gitano Hernando, a third-level European who is about to become a grade one winner in America as he upsets the Goodwood by a neck over Colonel John and Richard's kids. Partner, I've got a question for you.
Here it goes. Go ahead.
Do you think the Europeans are salivating at the prospect of coming over for another Pro Ride Breeders' Cup when one of their own, and not very highly thought of, to be very honest with you, in Europe, comes here and wins a race like the Goodwood?
I think if they were honest, they'd admit to you that their jaw dropped again.
Of course.
One of the texts that I read was that Wolverhampton was described as a lowly track. Now that's terribly unfair.
Yeah.
I think that's disgusting myself. He said he had earned less than $55,000 before he came here, and he wasn't a group winner. But nonetheless, he really handed it to us big time, and it's just embarrassment's not quite fair, but I mean it was a real slap in the face. Let's put it that way. That this happened. As far as Mine That Bird, I put my glasses on here. I actually think he did a little better than some of the detractors said. I think he got into it pretty much in the last 2.5 furlongs. Don't know what he picked up. I can see him improving off this. I'm hoping that they stay the course. He certainly ran better than he did his last time at Santa Anita. But, I mean, for this to turn out this way is just quite a statement about it, and I do happen to agree with Mark. They must be salivating at the chance of, any one of several that could come to the pro ride for the $5 million Classic if, in fact, they're geared that way. What I was going to say is that for all of you that like to pick on me for my position in Zenyatta, you're welcome to, but I'm really fair game. You can pick on me about my love for Tiago because this was dreadful, and I think we've seen the last of them. No great comeback coming here. But that's the Goodwood, the grade one Goodwood this year. So.
Gitano Hernando from Wolverhampton, where he won 1 1/16 on their synthetic in 46-2. And I read where that was a track record.
Okay, you got the PPs there. Yeah.
First time Lasix.
Yeah.
Congratulations
Yeah.
to Team Valor. He's
Without
a grade
question.
one stakes
Yeah.
winner
Without
in
question.
America.
Yeah.
Karen Fallon, who was on the sidelines for I think better than 2 years with that drug situation, rode the winner. I don't know what to make of it. I don't have any idea.
I will give a salute to Team Valor. I think I'm right about. I didn't look it up, but almost annually they make a statement in like February about we bought somebody for the Belmont. I think this was one that they bought for the Belmont. So you stayed with it, and great, you got your grade one. So.
Good efforts from Colonel John and Richard's kids coming out of the Pacific Classic. I thought it was a very poor effort from Mine That Bird. I hated it.
Okay.
And Chocolate Candy, who ran 5th, is going to go to the Pro Ride Mile. All right, next up, the Clement Hirsch on the proper surface, and the Californians face the presence of an East Coast invader. It was the speedy Precious Passion, number 2, a lover of firm turf. He was scratched from the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic when the rains came. Well, no worries here for the 13-10 favorite, as Elvis Trujillo will sit as still as possible. He's going to let the 6-year-old just do his thing, and do his thing he does, as he'll open the lead and pretty much cruise as he rolls to 2.5 length victory over number 1, Medici Code, and number 8, Springhouse, as an Eastern Invader beats the best marathon turf horses in California, and that should come as no surprise to anybody.
This is absolutely totally fun. You know, if you're our age, now Mark can answer this question, all right, but some of the audience maybe can't. If you're our age, you remember the quintessential closer from not only last, but as Mark likes to see, closer from the zip codes. You know, generations ago, Silky Sullivan never ever knew what the front end looked like until the wire. Well, if Silky Sullivan's been reincarnated, this is his alter ego. This guy doesn't ever know what the back of the bag looks like, and he never makes a secret about how he's going to run. He just opens up the throttle and goes. It is certainly very exciting. He is a Royal Anthem, and he reminds me of the way Royal Anthem won the Canadian International. I was up there that way. It was 1.5 miles, and he just liked to gallop in front and gallop them to death. Very, very fine. He got the turf that he wanted without question, and he's always a danger wherever he goes. No surprise that he loved it out here. Speaking of the International, I think maybe one more starter in the turf might come out of that today as a win for him. But man, he handed it to him, and Mark and I were talking off camera last week after the show about what has happened to the California marathoners, or even middle distance, as some people would say, that used to be there a couple of, in the 80s and early 90s with the men that we remember training them. But congratulations, you're a factor wherever you go.
And I think a major factor because, rival jockeys, they don't know what to do.
I agree.
You can't make an early move and compromise your horse because he's not as fast as this horse going 1.5 miles. And if you let this horse go too far, this horse gets brave. Horses come to him.
He really does.
I made a pretty good bet earlier this year at Gulfstream on a horse, I think it was Quasi Cobra, in one of those marathon grass races. And Precious Passion opened the lead. Quasi Cobra came to him at the head of the stretch at 11 or 12 to 1, and I was getting pretty excited. And Precious Passion just looked at him and said, sorry, and kicked back on. He has a tendency to do that. Mary Hartman's done a wonderful job. All congratulations. And the one thing you can be assured about in handicapping this year's Breeders' Cup Turf is there will be plenty of pace. Next up, the Oak Tree Mile. And like the Clement Hirsch, the Oak Tree had an East Coast invader in number 9, Cowboy Cal. Winless in his last 5 starts, but an improved second behind Just Enough Humor at the spot in last. He was the 8-5 favorite, and just like the Clement Hirsch, the East Coast Invader would win. Cowboy Cal took advantage of number 7 Monterey Jazz, a real fast horse who was acting up in the gate and who did not break as alertly as he normally does. So Garrett Gomez put Cowboy Cal on the front end. And folks, I want to tell you, I followed this horse's career from day one. He is a very difficult horse to ride. He is very headstrong. But he got along better with Garrett Gomez here. Maybe he just likes Southern California. Maybe he likes Garrett Gomez. But he really got along with him very well. 23-2. Then under pressure from Monterey Jazz, a very fast second quarter in 22-3. Then he came back with a 23 flat third quarter and a 24 flat final quarter, and Cowboy Cal would have enough to best Global Hunter, who set an absolutely perfect trip. And what's the script? To capture the Oak Tree Mile and its East Coast dominance once again.
It is, and speaking of opposite impression theories, as I said with the last race, alter ego, Silky Sullivan, he's coming off 2 losses at 2 turns to Just Enough Humor at Saratoga and the 4-star Dave and Brook. And sometimes when you look at something and say, well, it's a natural that if he shortens up to 1 mile, he's going to last this time. Well, it doesn't always work out that way. Just like, sometimes the 1-turn sprinter doesn't become a great 2-turn horse because he's always closing. This is a very, very fine performance. He's put himself in the picture here. And he won the Stroob, did he not? I think he's a Stroob winner too. So he's got a pro ride victory,
Yes, and in fact, everybody assumes he's going to go to the Breeders' Cup Mile. He could go to the Pro Ride Mile. I mean, he's handled that surface. But, in deep stretch, when it looks like, here's Global Hunter. These are the kind of trips I dream about on grass. Global Hunter, you couldn't have asked for a better trip. watch Cowboy Cal. He edges away from him late.
Yes, sir.
You know, pretty good effort. So here's a horse who on the East Coast was certainly not as good as Just Enough Humor. Global Hunter is and I say this with, you know, tongue firmly planted in cheek, a Grade 1 stakes winner in California, having won the Eddie Reed. He's nowhere near as good as Cowboy Cal. That's a very good effort from Cowboy Cal. Next on the docket, the Shadwell Turf Mile run over a very soft course. The 7-5 favorite, number 7, Just Enough Humor. Unbeaten in 6 starts on turf, including the 4-star Dave and the Bernard Baruch here at Saratoga, but he had never run over a turf course anywhere near this soft. He will never be a factor, finishing 6th of 7. The second choice at 2.5 to 1 was number 2, Mr. Sydney. 4 for 4 at a mile on turf, and a horse who always has liked soft turf. He's going to finish a non-threatening 3rd. The eventual winner would be number 9, Court Vision, who, after earning $750,000 as a 3-year-old last year, had been a major disappointment this season, having gone 0 for 5. But he had had an operation, and he was starting first time for Rick Dutrow. The early pace would be very conservative, as Corellian, making his first start of the year, would control things. Rajiv Marad did a great job, 25-2 and 50-2. And Corellian would run huge. But in the end, Court Vision would get up in the final strides to win by a nose and upset the Shadwell Turf Mile.
Well, I thought a couple of the things that first-time Dutrow did that were so insightful. The blinkers went back on, that's for sure. And he was winless in 5 starts this year at longer distances. And Dutrow decides to select a mile, and he was scratched out of the Kelso at Belmont, the mile turf race there. And so going back to the mile, whatever, you know, however you want to look at it, it certainly worked. He's got his Grade 1 score here. He's a Gulch. I don't think this is necessarily connected, but Gulch is a 2-time winner of the Grade 1 Metropolitan Mile. So give credit to Dutrow for making that strategy with this guy, and it absolutely worked out very, very well. I think Corellian, as you mentioned, Rusty Arnold is having a pretty good year himself. You got the PPs. Was this his first start of the year?
Yes,
you may ever know that. So
yes.
he's been away for a long time.
Yep.
Nearly snuck away with it. So,
yeah, he did. Rajiv did a great job, but you know, I can hear it from the Rick Dutrow detractors. You know, he had to be up to something to score with this horse. The open-minded folks would say this is an awfully nice piece of training.
I think it is.
And it's probably on to the Breeders' Cup
is.
Mile. For Court Vision, Corellian will likely go to Churchill. Mr. Sydney, I know he ran 3rd. I didn't like his effort. Just Enough Humor off 6 in a row was dreadful. He never lifted a leg. You know, I'm not carefree in dismissing certain horses' efforts, but I'm going to give him a pass on this one because he was struggling with that surface, and he could be semi-interesting if he draws inside, if he draws well for the Breeders' Cup Mile. All Breeders' Cup Mile participants were given some hope several weeks ago when Goldie Kova was beaten in the Prix de la Forêt going 7 furlongs. She's in the blue and white, attending the pace on the outside. Now, she had drawn the extreme outside post this day, and Olivier Pellier had a choice. Do I take her back, drop in, save ground, and make a run, or do I send her? Well, he chose the latter, and it didn't work, as she's going to finish a close 3rd here behind the unheralded Verinar and Sweet Hearth over good to soft going. But last year in the Breeders' Cup Mile, as a 3-year-old filly racing against older males, we remember her electrifying turn of foot, and she simply crushed him. But partner, this day, they decided to change her racing style a bit. And I don't care how classy or how outstanding you are as a racehorse, when they change your running style, more times than not, it causes problems.
I'm hoping that it doesn't cause further problems, because that electrifying run you referred to down on the inside was just one of the great Breeders' Cup moments. I mean, it was just so startling. And hope they haven't messed with it. Look, these are terrific horsemen and trainers. You know, I mean, you can mess up a filly mentally, but I Yeah, it was the wrong call if that was the decision. Absolutely, yeah.
Her trainer, Freddie Head, who rode the magnificent Miesk, said prior to the foray that Goldie Kova was better than Miesk. And we're going to have to see about that, Freddie. Okay, we are up to our next break on this October 17th edition of the program. Thank you so much for having joined us. When Michael and I return, there's much more stakes action. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of sprint races, but we're going to take a look back at a couple of sprint races that were not only won very impressively, in my opinion, but won in a manner that you don't see a lot of top quality sprint races won in. So we've got a lot more stakes action to take a look at. As we go to this break, last Monday at Belmont, the Pebbles, 3-year-old fillies at a mile on the proper surface. The $1.45 to the $1 favorite. Number 1, Marum, previously undefeated for local product Chad Brown. Please watch the break. Marum is number 1 in last Monday's Pebbles. So we'll take a look at the Pebbles, and Michael and I will be back with much more stakes action right after these messages.
They're in the gate. And they're off. Marum was away last in the field. Up the backstretch run, and it's Miss Catalyst and Denomination over on the inside. Pull Dancer, Blushing Dixie, and Miss Blakely right there in the vanguard. Turning into the backstretch, and it is Blushing Dixie. Narrowly, Miss Blakely now pokes her head in front. Denomination hugs the fence while running along in third. Miss Catalyst is fourth on the outside. Pull Dancer is now fifth. Legally Blanca now races in sixth. Donislu's seventh on the outside. Marum is eighth, but only about 5 lengths from the lead now. And right next to her is My Magic Moment. So heading for the far turn. There's 5 furlongs to go. Miss Blakely, a narrow lead over Blushing Dixie. The quarter was 23 and 1/5 seconds. Miss Catalyst sitting just outside the lead in good striking position, while third, Donislu is forced to go 4 wide around that far turn. Denomination is at a beautiful trip so far, drafting in behind the leaders, and then in between horses is Legally Blanca. Dropping back now is Pull Dancer. Marum is still at the back of the pack, along with My Magic Moment, but Marum's still only about 4.5 from the lead, but she will be forced to go very wide. She can be about 5, maybe 6 wide into the stretch. And now they are into the stretch. Miss Catalyst, Miss Blakely, and Blushing Dixie down on the inside. Donislu, Legally Blanca is coming on through between horses. Marum getting on track late, and Pull Dancer down to the final 16th. Miss Catalyst, here comes Marum on the outside. Here comes Pull Dancer too. Here's the wire. It's Miss Catalyst narrowly, and very close as well with Pull Dancer and Marum.
This is the OTB Television Network.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. Mike Vietch to my left, I'm Mark CUSANO, and the Pebbles went to Miss Catalyst for Todd Pletcher and Javier Castellano. by a neck over Pull Dancer and Merrim, and certainly the untimely, the slow break by Merrim.
No doubt.
Put her behind the 8 ball. Speaking of behind the 8 ball, Denomination never had any room to run throughout the great majority of that 1 mile contest. All right, next segment, we're going to take a look at a couple of races which should have some bearing on the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, and we're going to begin with the First Lady at Keeneland, run over soft turf, which certainly was not ideal for the champ, Forever Together, number 5. She is the 11-10 favorite. Her biggest threat figured to be number 8, Diamond Drella, a winner of her last 6 starts on turf, including beating Forever Together here in New York in the Just a Game run over a soft course at Belmont. Now, Hot Atlantic is going to open a long lead in here, and while these fractions may not sound terribly quick, they are over this turf course, 24-1 in 48. Forever Together, you can see her at the top of your screen really struggling at the back of the pack. Now, she's eventually going to rally mildly for third, while Diamond Drella would again relish the soft going. And she's going to get up to beat number 4, Tiziquina, by 3/4 of a length to capture the First Lady.
Well, Mark, I've got, I enjoy listening to you and the other handicappers as you analyze races, and the OTB team. I love listening to them dissect things. I've got exactly probably one significant handicapping angle that I use in my life. I straight out love it when a trainer prepares a horse for a stretch out with several sprints, and I know you've heard me say that to you before. And I go back to Belmont Stakes Day, and Diamond Drella had run in 3 or 4 or 5 sprints at 6 and or 7 furlongs heading into the, and I simply got involved when I saw that. And as you pointed out, on that day, she defeated the champ Forever Together. I got involved again here in this race. I'm with you, Forever Together, a very game gutsy effort, just doesn't prefer this kind of footing. Diamond Drella, I will say this, she quickens about as any horse quickens when she's on her game. She can really step it up quick. This must be horrible footing to feel underneath to try to do stuff like this. And as far as trainer Angel Penna, we don't hear his name very often, but he serves a reminder that when he's got a grade 1 level horse, he sure knows how to manage them. And once again, he hands the champion a defeat. I'm a bit perplexed about Forever Together. On the one hand, you think, well, even in awful going, she's going to win. This is not her best distance. I hope they persevere. If she's below last year, she's not much below it. She may relish getting back to what we expect will be a firm turf on Breeders' Cup weekend. But back to Angel. Great job this year managing this girl. Wow.
Fabulous. Diamond Drella, when Angel Penna got her, was basically a 1-run closing turf sprinter. I don't normally like that style racehorse. 1-run closing sprinter stretching out. But she showed me she could stretch out for the Just a Game. She stretched out here. Now, in the meantime, they sent her to Presque Isle Downs for the Presque Isle Masters to see if she would handle synthetic so they could run her in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Well, she didn't handle synthetic, so that race is off the table. But what do they do with Diamond Drella? You're probably saying, well, shouldn't they run her in the Breeders' Cup Mile? And that would be a logical assumption, except she's owned by IEAH, who also owns Court Vision. I don't think they want to run them against each other. But I think she would be a perfect candidate for the turf sprint. Now, it is down the hill, something which she's never done, but 6.5 furlongs would be perfect for her. There's always plenty of pace in those wonderful turf sprints down the hill. I think that falls right in your lap.
It really does. And for her, it's like just going back to afternoon practice. She can do that all day. That's her. So I don't disagree with that at all.
Now, what do you do with Forever Together? I really liked her in the Filly and Mare Turf last year. I thought this race, the First Ladies, would set her up perfectly for the filly and mare turf, and I got lucky. You know, for once I was right, and she ran well. I don't know what I'm going to do with her this year. I know the soft turf is not her game. But you know what? That was a very fast pace. Remember, they ran the Shadwell Mile, and they went a half and 50 and 2 in the Shadwell Mile. Here they went, what, 48 flat. So it was a very fast pace, giving Forever Together every chance in the world. And okay, she rallied for third, but you know what? I wasn't jumping through hoops over that. So handicappers are going to have to decide, is Forever Together, has she lost a step or two from last year? Or has it just been the circumstances she's been involved in?
Yeah.
Because, folks, I think she's lost 3 of her last 4 starts.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm going through the same thing, but this much I'm going to say. I will say this about it. If she goes there and presumably she gets that service, I have zero doubt about her fitness to go back to 10 furlongs with what she's been through this fall.
Fitness is okay.
So I'm okay with that. So I'm going to, right now, my heart is I'm with its surface more than its attitude. We'll have to see.
We'll have to see it's right, because she got beaten the Canadian by Princess Haya, who goes in the EP Taylor
She goes in
this
the
afternoon.
Taylor today.
Let's see how she runs in the Taylor.
Let's see if she goes back to that, yeah.
Because she had no excuse getting beat by Princess Haya, so
Yep.
we'll have to see. All right, up next, the Yellow Ribbon, Grade 1, basically the same group of California fillies, with one seemingly inferior Midwest filly shipping in. The 6-5 favorite, and this is no surprise, number 1, Magical Fantasy. A winner of her last 3 starts on the turf at Santa Anita, Hollywood, and Del Mar, by a nose, a neck, and a length. Here she'll set an inside trip to the far turn, be taken 4 wide, and kick home for a half-length score over number 7 Visit and number 4 Black Mamba, a pair of very familiar rivals, to win the Grade 1 Yellow Ribbon. The question is, with these same fillies running against each other time after time after time, what exactly does it tell us?
Well, you know, I don't know what it tells, and don't misunderstand the statement I'm about to make, because I'm going to mention some names here, and they're not all names that are going to land in the same place. But what I did enjoy about this is, first of all, this is her, as per custom, launch the rally. And this is 3 straight Grade 1s. You just don't sneeze at that wherever it happens, so good for her. But what she did remind me of, Mark, is as a whole group, fillies and mares on turf this year, boy, we've got some good ones. We've got the Champ, we've got Ventura, we've got Diamondrella. I don't know if I've left somebody out here. So it's a good, now they're all not going to land in the same place. Breeders' Cup Day, we know that. But it is a reminder that it's a pretty nice group of older fillies and mares on turf that we've got. Ventura beat Males in the Woodbine Mile. You just saw Diamondrella. You know, this is a wonderful late punch. A little pedigree footnote I noticed, did not notice it going into the race. In fact, I don't think I ever noticed it. Her broodmare sire is a name that's pretty much vanished over the years, and especially on turf. Easy Goer is Grandpa here. It isn't that nice, and you just don't see that much anymore, and particularly on this particular surface. So,
well, it's not easy to rally 4 wide around the turn, but Magical Fantasy does it as she outruns Visit and holds off Black Mamba. I will say it again, when you run against the same fillies month in and month out, until you run against some fresh company, you don't really know how good they are. Visit came over last year for Juddmonte to run in the filly and mare turf, and she ran a very respectable 4th with an absolutely perfect trip. Visit has yet to win a race on American soil. I mean, I just don't, I can't see myself liking Magical Fantasy. And Patty Gallagher's done a wonderful job. I can't see myself liking her in the Breeders' Cup. Now, a couple of sprint races. Going to begin with a Thoroughbred Club of America last Saturday at Keeneland. 6 furlongs on the synthetic. Please watch the favorite, and there she is, number 8, Informed Decision. Folks, I have watched thousands of races through the decades, and I think I have a pretty good idea of where a horse needs to be at a certain point in the race in order to have its best chance to win. Now, going into this race, I didn't think they had any realistic chance to beat Informed Decision. But as the field turns for home, and you will see that in a moment, I didn't think Informed Decision had any realistic chance to win. And just watch what happens in the final quarter mile. I think this is a filly who is absolutely sensational on synthetic.
Well, 6 for 6 says that, but I mean, when I watched this and when I was jotting down my notes for today's show, what I did was I wrote down the word resolute, and then I came up with a trite phrase, against seemingly impossible odds. And when I put it together, it didn't do justice to how phenomenal this victory was from way back there. She is back at Keeneland at the start of the year. She won the Madison, is that the
Yes.
7? Or the
Yep.
Madison at 7 furlongs. And I would imagine that Julian was praying, give me that extra furlong back, because this is only 6. This is one of the races of the weekend, no doubt about it. What a great job by Jonathan. 6 for 6 on this surface. And Shepherd's Roll continues in the latter half of the year 2009. And what odds do you take even here? Yep.
Folks,
Yep.
the pace didn't exactly collapse.
Yep.
The final quarter was run in 24 flat, actually a few hundredths under 24 flat. She must have made up 4 lengths in the last quarter mile to win going
really
away.
something.
Now, she wasn't beating killers, but you know what? The filly who ran second's pretty good.
Boy.
I just thought that was a magnificent
So did I.
performance. As Michael mentioned, she is 6 for 6 on synthetic. She has won at Keeneland, she has won at Arlington, and she has won at Presque Isle. That does not necessarily mean that she's going to relish the pro ride at Santa Anita.
Yeah.
That's a different surface. She beat Ventura earlier in the year in the Madison at Keeneland. If you get a chance, go back and take a look at that race. I've said to you for the last month, I tried to make a cigar bet with my partner, that for the filly and mare sprint, I would take Ventura in Informed Decision and give you the rest of the field, which includes Grade 1 winners like 7th Street, 2-time champion Indian Blessing, the filly I love, Sarah Louise, the last filly to beat Rachel. I tried to give you all of those because I think the filly and mare sprint is Ventura and Informed Decision. I really think that much of those 2 fillies. The edge, it could be a possible edge, it could be a dramatic edge. That Ventura has over Informed Decision, she loves Santa Anita. We don't know about Informed Decision. But you know what Jonathan said after the race, which was interesting? He referred to Informed Decision as a 7 furlong specialist. That's interesting.
Well, yeah, okay.
If she can win at 6 and 6.5, now she's going to face better in the Breeders' Cup. But if she is a 7 furlong specialist, that may bode well. And by the way, I will still give you that cigar bet. You can have all those wonderful fillies in the filly and mare sprint. Just give me Ventura and Informed Decision. Think about it.
Well, I mean, you know, I have to admire your bravery at taking that position on the cigar bet. So, you know, huckster that you are. So, you know.
7th Street.
That's so brave.
Indian Blessing.
I'm just
Sarah Louise.
I'm really deeply touched by this. So I'll structure one of my own on the cards. So, but it did take guts for you to say
Yes,
it.
it
I
did.
will have to say that.
All right. Listen, every once in a while you like to get a little edge. In the ancient title, with the California sprint leader Sensational skipping the race and instead training up to the Breeders' Cup Sprint, favoritism went to number 5, Gallego. Please watch Gallego in the Godolphin Blue. He's next to last at the top of your screen. He's 6-5 off an optional claiming score here at Saratoga. Pay close attention to how he's ridden and how he wins. Because, folks, you know, it's pretty unusual in this day and age for a rider, in this case Garrett Gomez, to sit absolutely chilly in a 6 furlong sprint, let his horse settle, get his feet up under him, then make a quarter-mile brush. Now, I know you can do that at Santa Anita, where you can't do that at other tracks, but you know what? This is really a wonderful example because he only turns them loose for the final quarter, and Gallego is going to kick in win the ancient title by an expanding length and a quarter, and I really like this
How
performance.
can you not? I mean, he really does only run about a furlong and a half. This is so very, very impressive, and we've sort of denigrated some of the California divisions, but I'm not denigrating the division that has this guy in Sensational in it, but I think Sensational's got to be paying attention right now. This is the Arkansas Derby winner from last year, a Classics candidate, and he's just turned downright vicious as a sprinter. He's got a flawless record under 7 furlongs. As we both pointed out, there's just like, I barely have time to take a deep breath and the race is over because that's how little I was asked to go. Interesting thing about this sire line, it's his father, Gilded Time, and his grandfather, Timeless Moment Mark. They were as fleet as they come. They were extremely fast horses. This is a $32,000 yearling that's now past $1.3 million in earnings, and he's got to be somebody that you're going to be looking over your shoulder in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, this guy.
Well, they originally paid
Wow.
$32,000 for him, but when Godolphin bought him,
Oh, yeah,
it was
that's
for
right, yeah,
lots
yeah.
and lots
Oh,
more
yeah.
than $32,000. 21-3 and 44-2, those are quick fractions, but I can almost guarantee you that the fractions in the Breeders' Cup Sprint will be a lot quicker. Last year they were 21-1 and 43-4. The guys that I know on the West Coast have basically told me, forget about trying to beat Sensational in the sprint. I don't agree
I'm
with
willing
that.
to take a stab now after seeing that.
I
Yeah.
don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I think this horse,
Yeah.
now he's going to have to get a trip in a big field, but I think he's coming up to the race just about as well as you possibly
Do you
could.
see a big field with these two?
Oh, yeah, it's the Breeders'
you
Cup.
really
Yeah,
do?
horses don't. No, it's the Breeders' Cup.
Well,
It's a sprint for $1 million. You know, you don't
if
get that
there's-
opportunity.
If there's 9 up, I'll be surprised to tackle these two. I mean, I think they're that impressive out there. So.
By the way, Crown of Thorns was a pretty solid second in there in only his second race since February of 2008, and that'll mean Dick Mandela, third start off the layoff for the Breeders'
okay,
Cup.
okay.
That could be a little
Okay.
bit interesting, but I'll tell you, another great job by Rick Matee. All right, we're up to our final break on this October 17th edition of the program. Hopefully by this hour, it's gotten above 40 degrees wherever you are. When Michael and I return, more stakes action. It's our 2-year-old segment. As we go to this break, going to take a look at the Jerome. Godolphin could have a pretty big Breeders' Cup
Boy,
day.
they're
They
loaded,
really
aren't they?
could.
Yeah.
And I think their hand was further strengthened with a performance in last Sunday's Jerome by Girolamo. He is number 3. He's the 4-5 favorite. Watch what happens to him at the break as we take a look at the Jerome. So Michael and I will be back with our final segment right after these messages.
And they're off. Girolamo missed the break, comes away last. Pitched perfectly out for the lead. Kensei away in good order. Is second and moving over to the rail. Moving alongside Kensei is Girolamo now third. And then it's Burley's Gold on hold in fourth, and Denver's the trailer. So pitched perfectly will be the leader here, and it's clear of Kensei by almost 2 lengths. Right behind Kensei is Girolamo through a quarter and 22 4/5 seconds. Pitched perfectly, grinding it out on the lead. Now he's clear by 2.5 lengths. Kensei continues unhurried while second. On the rail, it's Burley's Gold just on the inside of Girolamo. And Denver trails the field as they hit the far turn. Kensei makes a move at the lead right there at the half-mile pole. They got a half in 45 4, and Kensei overwhelms pitch perfectly. And here's Girolamo, and the race is on with 3 furlongs to go. Kensei about to be confronted in earnest by Girolamo. Just in behind them, Burley's Gold is third. Coming to the quarter pole, Kensei, Girolamo's at his throat latch as they hit the top of the stretch. Girolamo and Kensei, nothing between them with 3/16 of a mile to go. Girolamo's got a narrow lead. Kensei fights on. Burley's Gold continues third into the final 16th. Girolamo's in front. Kensei has given away late. Here's Burley's Gold to be second to a very good 3-year-old. Girolamo missed the break, but was first on the wire. Burley's Gold finishing second here, and Kensei was third, and the time for this year's Jerome was 1:33 4.
This is the OTB Television Network.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. Mike Veach to my left, I'm Mark CUSANO, and the Jerome goes to Girolamo for Rick Batty and Alan Garcia. Despite breaking a bit awkwardly, rallies to win by a length and a quarter over Burley's Gold and Kensei, 133-4. Now that was the 140th running of the Jerome. Now, they weren't all at a mile. The Jerome used to be a marathon, as you know, but that's got to be one of the fastest clockings
I would think, sure, yeah.
of the Jerome.
Yep.
Unbeaten in 3 starts this year. He's only made 6 career starts. He's never run beyond a mile, and he's never run 2 turns. So, which Breeders' Cup race do they point him to? To me, the logical race would be the Pro Ride Mile. But they are talking about the Classic. Personally, I think that would be a mistake.
Well, I do too. If at all, a mile would be fine. I agree. Yeah.
Now, as we speak at approximately 11:08 East Coast time, Belmont, Travers, and Jockey Club Gold Cup hero Summer Bird is working at Santa Anita. And if we can get Tim Ice before the end of the program, we'll give you an idea how he worked over that Pro Ride surface. But now, our 2-year-old segment, and we'll begin here in New York with a Champagne and the 70 cent to the dollar favorite, number 5, Dublin. I liked him in the Hopeful, and I liked him even more in here. I thought he was going to run big. He's going to run 5th of 6 and never be a factor. In the end, it would be number 6, Homeboy Chris. His last start and victory coming in a Calder maiden race. First time for Rick Dutrow. Now, Rick was very high on this gelding, and apparently he had a right to be. As Homeboy Chris, despite it didn't look to me like he ran very well around the turn. But once he straightened out, he really kicked it in to outfinish number 4, Discreetly Mine, and number 3, Aspire, who would find some traffic trouble in the stretch, to upset the Champagne. A wonderful performance by the winner, but what in the world happened to Dublin?
I cannot even begin to offer any explanation of that, Mark, and it confounded me like you and probably everybody else who paid attention and wagered their money there. D. Wayne, very high on him at Saratoga. And, D. Wayne is high on his horses, and that's fine. But he delivered the goods. He's struggling right now. He's getting asked to do a lot right now. You can't surmise. Is it getting splashed with dirt? Well, he got splashed with a lot of dirt at Saratoga. I just don't know. He looked like he would want to go farther, so something is not quite right there. And hopefully we'll get an answer. But in the meantime, Calder in New York, now it's first time Dutrow Calder in New York, has been a pretty good move this year with a very, very late surge here. Homeboy Chris gets the job done. Our trainer of note here has kind of got a stranglehold on the 2-year-old males in New York because he's also got DeFunnybone, who'll be one of the choices on the big day. Dick expressed his preference for the Remsen for this guy as a next start. I have no idea what and when the decision will be made. Discreetly Mine ran exactly the race I thought he would run coming off the futurity, and were it not for the presence of Dutro's horse, he might have won his Grade 1 effort. I thought he did exactly what he was supposed to do. The mystery is Dublin, but in either case, Dutro, as he sort of indicated in one of our earlier interviews, he was said repeatedly, I'm excited about getting to the fall with my 2-year-olds, and he surely has delivered here in these 2 races.
It's pretty sad in my mind that the Champagne, having been run for 138 years, one of the great prestigious 2-year-old races in the fall, may have absolutely no bearing on this year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Connection may not be there this year.
It really is. Next up, the Breeders' Futurity, a very large, seemingly competitive field of 14, the slight favorite at 3.5 to 1, number 2, Backtalk. The winner of his first 3 starts before running fourth in the Hopeful in last. This was his first start on synthetic. May turn out to be his last start on synthetic. Yeah. The second choice at 7 to 2, number 7, Make Music for Me. A synthetic track specialist, but a maiden, having run second in each of his last 2 starts behind California's leading 2-year-old male, Looking at Lucky. In the early going, it would be Sound Man who would set the pace, 23-3, 47-3. All the while, the eventual winner, number 6, Noble's Promise, would move up 4 wide to the far turn, make the front, open the lead, then have enough to hold safe. Number 8, Aconite, who I thought ran pretty well, for a half-length upset in the Breeders' Futurity. Noble's Promise had broken his maiden on the Ellis Park turf. Then he won a sprint at Presque Isle Downs. He's making his first start, I believe, let me double check this. I believe this was his first start. It was going 2 turns, and he's going to run awfully well for Kenny McPeak.
Well, you're going to hear Ken McPeak's name again before we sign off today, because this is a nice move. And speaking of things I've said before, this is a stretch out off of 3 short races. He comes out of Ellis and Presque Isle, as Mark noted, and he loves this particular 2 turns. And speaking of bargains, a $10,000 Keeneland Weanling is now a big winner here with a nice bankroll for Kenny McPeak. Aconite, a very, very fine get-up to be second here off his performance at Saratoga. I'm sure he's going on to the Breeders' Cup. I have no doubt about that.
So's the winner.
And so is the winner. And Aconite's people won one of these with the filly a few years ago at Woodbine Storm Song. But Ken McPeak is, who said earlier in the year, my horses are a bit behind. If you want them peaking at the right time, they're happening at the right time for Ken. Nice job, Ken.
Nice race for both the first 2 finishers. Roman Invasion was wide throughout from post 12. He got third. Now Make Music for Me, who was second and the best pal in the Del Mar Futurity, behind Looking at Lucky. You know, to some degree, it might give us a comparison of some of the East Coast 2-year-olds versus the Californians. He ran fourth in here without much of an excuse, and Looking at Lucky's likely to be the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now, 2-year-olds on the proper surface in the Bourbon over a yielding course. Watch number 4, Interactif. Pay attention to him. He's even money. An impressive winner of the With Anticipation at the Spa. Now, this is a colt who showed very high speed in dirt sprints, but has learned to settle some on grass, which is quite unusual. Kent DeSormo's riding, and Kent said that he was fighting him early on. This is a quote from Kent talking about Interactif. He leapt like a quarter horse. He was looking straight down the track and wanted to run, end quote. DeSormo would finally get him to settle. Folks, at the top of your screen, he's last. He's going to race wide for the final 3 quarters, not exactly the ideal scenario, but none of it would matter, as Interactif would pick off rival after rival. He would storm to the front and win the Bourbon impressively to make himself, unless there's a monster from Europe, the likely favorite for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Tour.
I think he is. I mean, the truth is, this is just a story of superiority, period. I mean, he runs an extra 100 yards or more to get this job done from where he comes from. He comes very wide, of course. This is just this is really, really some kind of an effort. And he lit up. He ran in the Sanford. He lit up when they put him on the Saratoga turf for the with anticipation. That's the only way I can describe it. Earlier in this show, I referred to a Phipps pedigree when it came to Magical Fantasy. On turf, his grandmother happens to be personal ensign.
Really? Okay.
So the connection is there.
Well, I do think the yielding course helped him in the manner that he won this race, coming from that far back, because all the speed came back. I mean, Billions Boy was up front. He ran 11th of 12. Activity Report pressed the pace. He finished 10th of 12. But even with that, and even with the fact that Interactive is still learning not to run off, to settle, I thought that was a magnificent performance. 145-1 over yielding turf. Earlier on the card that day, older allowance fillies, went a mile in 39-1. These are 2-year-olds. That compares very, very favorably. If he draws well in the juvenile turf, he's likely to be pretty tough. Let's move to the 2-year-old fillies and begin with a running of the Frisette. And the $5 to the $1 favorite, number 4, Awesome Maria, a winner of the Matron. Now, Stan Huff was a little bit worried that he was bringing her back pretty quickly. In the early going, it would be the second choice, number 3, Nona Mia, who earned a big speed figure when breaking her maiden in last. She's going to set the pace in here at 22-3 and 45-3. Number 2, Devil May Care, who is the eventual winner. She had broken her maiden, I thought, very impressively in the slop in her debut at Saratoga. She's going to sit an inside trip here. The favorite is going to be basically stuck behind Dead Rivals. Cornelio is going to angle inside on the turn. Nona Mia is going to tire. Devil May Care is going to get the jump on Awesome Maria. And in my opinion, in the end, that's going to make the difference, as Devil May Care will hold off Awesome Maria by a head to upset the Frisette.
Well, this is kind of like old times here, and Todd Pletcher, for many, many years, the late 90s and early 21st century, you know, one of the things was he'd break a maiden with a horse somewhere, and he'd show up in a Grade 1, and he'd win the Grade 1. And this is just a revisit to what Todd excelled at so well. He does get the jump on Awesome Maria, who runs fine. The pace setter was making a big jump in distance as well. She didn't handle it quite as well as Devil May Care. That said, I think the filly who set the pace here has got a nice future. Awesome Maria just almost gets there late. She runs, pardon me, another fine effort for Stan Huff. He mentioned afterwards he's going to put her away for the year. I couldn't agree with the decision more. I think she's got a very bright future. But in the end, Todd stands up on not only a revisit to the past, but kind of a Todd weekend last weekend. So
absolutely. After going 0 for his last 50 in Grade 1s in New York, I think that dates back to the fall of 2007. He wins 2 Grade 1s in one day, the Jamaica and the Frisette. I thought this was a nice effort by Devil May Care. Now, she did get the jump on Awesome Maria, but this is only her second start. It's her first try on a normal, dry surface. I thought it was very good. The problem is, for handicappers, how do you translate this effort on a normal dirt surface to that stuff at Santa Anita? There is no way to factor that in. Do you know, between the Frisette and the Champagne, 2 great, prestigious, historic races, you might get 1 Breeders' Cup starter? I mean, that is really sad, but congratulations, Todd Pletcher, Johnny Velasquez. I thought that was a nice effort by the winner, a very nice effort by the runner-up. But Awesome Maria is going to Gulfstream, going to South Florida, where I'd like to be for this winter. Final race, Thursday at Keeneland, the Jessamine. Final prep for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Ironically, the Jessamine was taken off the turf and run on Polytrack. But interestingly, the 3 fillies who figured to be the major contenders on grass ran 1, 2, 3 on synthetic. The only difference is the Jessamine, which was a win and you're in on turf, that's not the case on synthetic. The eventual winner is the 3rd choice, number 3, House of Grace. She's going to sit a beautiful inside trip under Mike Luzzy, angle out in the stretch, and get up late to nail number 5, Smart Seattle, who also sat a beautiful trip under Jeremy Rose. She was the second choice. She's going to get beat by a nose. Hathir, the 2-1 favorite, she's going to race outside throughout and finish third, beaten about 3 1/4. I like Smart Seattle going in here. She's going to look like a winner because this trip is gorgeous. But you know what? Kenny McPeak's filly is going to kick it in late, and House of Grace is now 2 for 2 during her career. A maiden win on the proper surface at Saratoga, and here a stakes victory in the Jessamine.
For me, the most noteworthy thing here, and one of it's happening right at this spot, I thought this filly showed a ton of composure for only her second start. She begins, and I think the track announcer noted it, she began a long, steady gain to the leaders on the backstretch. She was making a nice move, and then she had to steady slightly, and then going again, she has to wait for some room on the turn here. A lot of 2-year-old fillies, that's about it. You're just gonna have to wait for another day. Instead, she kept her momentum up very, very well. I think the Smart Strike filly, Smart Seattle, is a pretty quality filly. I think she's got a future. Kenny just gets through here and overhauls her with a very, very nice late move. Just, you know, Ken is going into the Breeders' Cup with 3 or 4 starters, 4 as of right now, 3 of them 2-year-olds, and here it is with the late lunge at the end. Very, very nice filly, won her debut at Saratoga, but for me, it was a story of composure when having 2 or 3 things thrown at you, not to mention not planning to run that surface.
You know, Smart Seattle, I really thought she was home free. You couldn't have asked for a better trip. Apparently has some distance limitations at this time, but you know what? The juvenile fillies turf, I believe, is a mile.
Okay.
This was a mile and a 16th.
Yeah.
The thing is, to get into the Breeders' Cup, and I think the juvenile fillies races have a limit of 12. So you either get in by points or the selection committee chooses you, which normally they choose, you know, the Europeans, and rightfully so. So I don't know how many of these 3 fillies are going to get in.
Okay.
I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, as good as they ran in here, 1, 2, 3, I can make a pretty strong case that all 3 of them are better on grass. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get in. Hathir was the only one who got an outside trip. She's out of Golden Apples, a $1 million grass-winning filly. So the Jessamine was running 44-1, which they ran 4 other races in a mile and a 16th that day. That factored in pretty well with the other races. Okay, those are the 19 races from that extended weekend. We're going to save the email and the letter for next week where we can give them sufficient time. And we are still hoping for a call back from Tim Ice on the summer bird work this morning at Santa Anita. But let's recap it a little bit. Todd Pletcher breaks out of that long 0 for grade 1 streak in New York by winning a pair with Take the Points and Devil May Care. Rick Dutrow won a pair of grade 1s with first-time Dutrow starters in Court Vision and Homeboy Chris. The highlights, well, you have to start with Zenyatta, 13 in a row without a loss. But you know, for a guy who doesn't like sprints as much as most other people, I was particularly taken by both Informed Decision and Gallego.
No doubt about that. Yep.
The major disappointments, I have mined that bird as a major disappointment in the Goodwood. And, you know, I think the biggest disappointment was Dublin in the Champagne. Nobody knows what happened.
I would say that, I would agree with that. Yes, that would be. Yep.
In California, the East Coast shippers dominated the turf stakes, with Cowboy Cal winning the Oak Tree Mile and Precious Passion winning the Clement Hirsch. You know, obviously, the highlight for the Europeans and for Team Valor was Gitano Hernando winning the Grade 1 Goodwood. So some of the highlights from the weekend past. Today we've got the Queen Elizabeth II at Keeneland. And Tommy Albertrani has the likely favorite in Gossip Girl. And if she wins convincingly or wins without taking too much out of herself, they may send her back.
Okay, good. For Tom.
And at Woodbine, the E.P. Taylor and the Canadian International. And as Michael mentioned earlier, there's like 3 win-and-you're-in races.
The
at
sprint,
Woodbine
then the Arctic is
today.
the grass race for $500,000, yes. Yep.
Okay. Quick reminder, tomorrow here in Saratoga at the Thoroughbred track, the New York Breeders Sales Company sale, and it's open to the public. And our associate producer, Julie Hoxie, her organization will be running the food concession in the kitchen. And once again this year, I was told that I was volunteering. So why don't you stop in and say hello? I'll be the one with 7 layers of clothing on and a warm pair of gloves. So why don't you stop by and say hello? Unfortunately, Tim Ice is still with Summer Bird, so I think we've run out of time as far as that goes. But check the Summer Bird workout from this morning at Santa Anita. Time to thank all the folks who helped get this week's show on the air. Dan Hayes again directed, and Pete Persico. Kurt Flick and Pat Peretta, our associate producer, Julie Hoxie.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks to one and all. So that puts most of the major stakes action leading up to the Breeders' Cup behind us. We'll take a look at some of the grass races from today on next week's show. But one guest we're going to need to have on in the next 2 weeks is Rick Matee.
I think Rick, yeah,
to help
definitely,
him
yeah.
sort out
Yeah.
all the Godolphin runners for you, where they're going and how they're doing. So we'll have that over the next week or
Have
two.
a nice weekend.
You do the
Yes.
same. Stay warm.
I do.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so very much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend and a terrific upcoming week. And from all of us here at Down the Stretch, we'll see you next week.
What's better than picking the winner? How about owning the winner? With Saratoga's original racing partnership, Harding Glass Racing. Our partnerships are surprisingly affordable, offering minimum risk, maximum purchasing power, and the unparalleled expertise of a superior management team. A team of proven winners. Join Saratoga's original racing partnership. Call 877-RACE-WIN. That's 877-722-3946. Or visit hardingglassracing.com.
Whitehall Stable is having a breakout year. Hi, I'm Jim Pippo. I'm really excited to share this dream. I've put together an expert team that personally picks quality thoroughbreds.
We have an exciting roster of 2-year-olds this year. It's a great opportunity.
Shares are now available. Low risk to you at fair prices. I will manage your investment because it's also mine. Partner with a local name in thoroughbred racing. Join the excitement. Go to whitehallstable.com or call today.